Welcome back to Sam Goes to the Moon. Now, you might have been to locals lately, and you might have heard some people talking about something called Go format, and you thought, what the hell? I know what Go format is. It's when Trick Stars were popular. They were topping with the goats all the time. They were making Borload, They were making Mrs. Radiant, Link Spider, um, Link Karibo, Borload, Take Your Monster. Easy. That's it, right? That's Go format? No, that's not Go format. Now I'm going to tell you right now. Go format was a format between April and June of 2005 that people referred to as GOAT format because the top premier deck was GOAT Control. Now, GOAT Control is kind of notorious for being a deck that is skillful and slow in the mirror matches. And also, the deck list kind of tends to look like a ban list in and of itself. For the time being, anyway. Like, you look at, if you were in 2010 and you looked back at a 2005 Go Control deck list, you'd be like, dang, look at all these banned cards. You got cards like Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, Delinquent Duo. At the time, BLS was a very powerful card. Its counterpart, what's it called? Chaos Emperor Dragon was banned, but BLS was at 1. Anyway, there were a lot of skillful one-ups in this format, and that's what makes it so interesting and hard to analyze, honestly. The pace of the game was generally slow, and you only played one of a lot of cards, so you could see them as powerful options. Now, why would you like that? Ever. Why would you like that? It just sounds like kind of like a sacky format, honestly. Now, you think of today's format, you think of archetypal cards. Sky Strikers, Altergeist, Thunder Dragon, Salamangreats. This is being posted on February 20th, 2019, by the way. You think of all those cards, and you think, those are all archetypes. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Go format, they ain't no archetypes. I mean, in the Go Control strategy, there's no archetypes. There are some archetypal decks, like Gravekeepers were a popular anti-meta, but I'm not here to talk about those. That deck's lame. Anyway, in the Go Control mirror, there was a lot of skilled play. It was very back and forth. It was very much like, you do this, I respond with this. It was not a make my board, break my board. It was more of a set monster, set spell and trap, pass. What do? Activate a card that outs set monster, or summon a card that outs set monster, set a card, pass. It was very much back and forth until one player was just out of options, and then that player was depleted, therefore, of resources. And that's where the skill comes in. You have to know when to use your powerful cards to be able to out the powerful cards your opponent has in the mirror match. It's hard. Let me tell you right now. It's a hard format to learn, but once you do, you will thrash everybody. A skilled Go player will win 9 games out of 10 against someone who has never played Go before, even though you think that it'd be pretty easy to get in Go format. You just You just sack the one-ups. You just draw BLS and you win. No, that's not how it works. That can be how it works. 1 in 10 games. 1 in 10 games, you're just going to summon BLS and your opponent's going to have no out and you're just going to be like, I win. Good job. But that's not going to be it every single time. You're gonna develop a skill over time if you play this format enough. Anyway, that's enough about the skill play of the format. The biggest draw to this format for me is that to build a deck in Go format, it can be pretty cheap. You can probably build a deck for $30. Most expensive card is like BLS. It's like $10. You buy everything else for $1 or less a card. $1 at most. Or less a card. Especially from a card shop. Just go in and be like, hey, I want a goat deck. They're like, alright. They pull it all out and you got it, dude. You could probably get a goat deck for $25, honestly. Anyway. The biggest thing is nostalgia. There ain't nothing better than activating Pot of Greed. Do you know what that card does? I don't know what that card does. Tell me what it does in the comments below. Tell me what that card does. I bet you can't tell me what it does. Nobody knows what that card does. Nobody. Alright, well. I've been talking about this for forever, but you're probably thinking, why the F is it called Go format? Well, believe it or not, a powerful card in this format was Scapegoat. In 2005, Scapegoat. You know, the card where you activate it, and then in your next turn, you make Link Spider, Link Karibo, then Nightmare Phoenix, pop a back row, then Borreload, and then you steal their monster, and then from there you just win the game. Wait, no. In this format in 2005, you didn't have any of those nice cards. You didn't have no Borreload. I mean, sure as hell would be nice to have that card, but, you know, we didn't have that, so. Why was Scapegoat so good? Summon 4 tokens? Okay, what do you do with them? You can't synchro with them? There's no synchros. That's a good question. Let me answer that question. Alright, so the reason Scapegoat is so good, hardly anything can out 4 tokens in one turn. Scapegoat is essentially a threatening roar for like up to 4 turns, honestly. It can be up to 4 turns, depending on how much your opponent wants to commit, and the biggest thing about Go format is you don't want to commit. You don't want to summon a bunch of monsters to the board, because if you summon a bunch of monsters, you're going to get blown out by cards like Snatch Steal, Metamorphosis, Lightning Vortex, if somebody plays that, you know. Like, any of those cards really will blow you out if you overcommit, and nobody wants to do that. So, honestly, Scapegoat can block up to 4 turns of attacks if your opponent doesn't want to commit 2 monsters to the board. Now, these are why cards like Ashura Priest and Tribe Infecting are so important in Goat format as a whole. We'll get into that later, but just keep that in mind. Not only does Scapegoat block up to 4 battle phases worth of attacks, you can also use a card that is banned right now that you may not have ever heard of, called Metamorphosis. It's a normal spell that says tribute any monster and summon any monster from your fusion deck, not extra deck. I don't want you new kids coming in and ruining my fun, okay? It's called a fusion deck. Alright? It's called a fusion deck. So, you summon that big crazy eyeball monster from your extra deck with Metamorphosis using a goat token. Then you steal their boy. And you call your boy. And then none of their dudes can attack, and then from there it's really just is really just that guy controlling the game. Big crazy eyeball monster control. That's it. That's what Go format is, man. No, except there's outs to it. You know, we can talk about those later, but whatever. Well, actually, we can just talk about those now. Tsukiyomi, Exiled Force, your own Metamorphosis. I like to play Smashing Ground. One out to that card is letting it sit there. A lot of the time, a Thousand Eyes Restrict can't do much by himself. You really have to try to play into that card. If you let that card sit there and just do nothing, it doesn't really do anything. Just like I said, it does nothing. It will just sit there, kind of gather monsters. Okay. As long as those monsters were set, that Thousand Eyes Restrict has 0 attack, which means that he is not getting over any of, guess what, our GOAT tokens. That's another big thing. GOAT control. GOAT tokens blocking Thousand Eyes Restrict. Now you know. Alright. Here's what, for the last part of this video, I'd like to go over just some of my technical plays that I kind of rounded out. There's like 5 sections, I guess. Saving your power cards. So, Delinquent Duo and Graceful are the first that comes to mind. Your powerful, just generic advantage gaining cards. So with Delinquent Duo, while it is nice to just resolve that card, pay 1,000 life points, discard 2 cards in your opponent's hand. Wow, that's a +1 if I ever heard it. Now there are cards like Sinister Serpent that make that card not so good. Now, if I use my Delinquent Duo and get its effect off and banish, or not banish, discard a card out of my opponent's hand that I didn't really need anyway, and then they just discard Sinister Serpent as their second card, I didn't really accomplish anything. So unless that first card was a random BLS that I hit out of 40 cards, I'm not too happy with that Delinquent Duo as my one of. Because remember, as long as you activated your Delinquent Duo, your opponent still gets to activate theirs too. And if yours wasn't powerful, but theirs was, you're immediately at a disadvantage. You have to think about that in the Go mirror. So, in addition to that, Graceful Charity is the same way. If you activate Graceful Charity, you draw 3 cards. That's insane. Insane. Now, let's say you draw 3 cards. None of them being Sinister Serpent. None of them being Night Assailant. Or anything that would be good to discard, really. Now, you have to choose 2 cards out of this gigantic toolbox where you essentially need... where essentially every card in your deck is an out to something. You have to choose 2 cards out of all those cards and discard them forever. The only way to get them back is Magician of Faith, which is easily outable by Nomen of Crossout, or Blade Knight, or Exiled Force, or Thousand Eyes Restrict. I could go on and on. But for now, let's just talk about let's just talk about Graceful Charity. Now, Graceful Charity, you kind of want to limit your discards on that. Now, I understand there are times where you have to activate Graceful Charity in order to survive a turn. You have to... your opponent is beating you down with 2 monsters and you just have no out. And you have to activate it. You have to make the risk. And you have to discard 2 cards and you have to make that sacrifice. And I understand that. That's reasonable. But activating it turn one for no reaon makes absolutely no sense to me. And when people do it, it's the immediate throw off that they have not played very much Goat format. Whenever you activate Graceful Charity, you should already have the 2 cards that you plan to discard in your hand. And the 3 cards that you draw should just be bonus options, quote unquote, options to that choice. So that's it for that section, really. I'm talking about Delinquent Duo and Graceful. I hope you guys really understand what I'm talking about there, because those cards are very important. They're 2 of the most powerful cards in the format, along with Pot of Greed. I don't really want to talk about Pot of Greed because Pot of Greed is a card that nobody really knows what it does, and as soon as you draw it, you just activate it, and nobody knows really what happens after that, but I'm sure something good would happen. So, yeah. Just don't think before you activate that card, just activate it. It's fine. Alright, so save your outs. This is the second section. Save your outs. For this one, I put Nobleman of Crossout as the first one. Nobleman of Crossout is a very, very, very powerful card. Now, you might think after you Nobleman of Crossout the first Magician of Faith. That's it. That's the only card I need to out with Nobleman of Crossout. No. Nobleman of Crossout is honestly a combo piece with a card called Tsukiyomi, which says when it's summoned, flip a card face down. Which essentially, that's a 2-card combo for banish any monster your opponent controls. That's pretty good, because in Goat format, there's no way to get back banished monsters. No way. There's no way. You're not getting... Like, let's say you Sook knock a BLS. They can't call the Haunted that. They can't randomly sack you and just win with that. No, they can't do that anymore. You got rid of that option, which is very powerful. Knock is an important resource. Keep it in mind. Heavy Storm. I'll let you guys think about this one for a sec. Let's say your opponent sets 2 cards. And you think you have a pretty powerful hand. Wow. You can make a push for like 2,000 damage with this hand. Let's activate Heavy Storm now. You activate it now. They activate Goats. Suddenly your hand of 2,000 damage becomes 100 damage somehow because they activated Goats. And now your Heavy Storm is gone. So you think, okay, well, I'm going to make my push. And then next turn, I'll set Magician of Faith and get back my Heavy Storm. That'll work, right? But of course, your opponent was a little bit too smart for you. They played Goat for that before. They know what is up. You set a face-down monster activate after you activated your Heavy Storm. Now they have saved their Nobleman of Crossout. See what I'm going with this? They've saved the Nobleman of Crossout, and they Nobleman of Crossout that Magician of Faith, and all your Magician of Faith are gone from your deck, and now your Heavy Storm is gone forever. Now, after they've done that, they set 4 trap cards, and they end their turn, and they look you straight in the eyes, and they ask you how you'd like it. And you bend over, and you say however you'd like. Alright, and next, our last card is Metamorphosis. So, Metamorphosis is a card that you don't really have to save. It's not super important. It's a combo piece, honestly, with your Magician of Faith, and it helps you grind your games out. But it's definitely good to have in hand to just like out the big guys. Like if they go like Jinzo and try and push, but then they can't kill you. It's nice to have a meta to just answer that, because sometimes Jinzo is hard to out. I'm being honest with you. You might not think so, but it is. Alright, knowing when to push. So, Heavy Storm, we've already really talked about that. Like, you really don't want to activate that card early. It's not a card that you want to activate for 2,000 points of damage, like I said before. You want to really make sure that you have the cinch. You have the push that's going to end the game, and then you want a heavy. Or you want to wait until it's a time where you know that you are just going to like +4 off this heavy or +3 off this heavy, and there's going to be no return. Or like really, it's not that hard knowing when to activate heavy. It's just you have to know that heavy is a powerful card, and Heavy Storm is just one of those cards. Anyway, in the same category, BLS. I've seen so many people summon their BLS turn 1 and just pass. It hurts me. It hurts me so much when I don't open just the punish for that, because that play is so easy to punish. Like let's say my opponent just summoned a BLS turn 1. I open Snatch Steal. Snatch Steal. Okay, that's mine now. Like it was that easy. So don't use your BLS prematurely. Wait until it's game. Don't let your opponent get a free win off you because you summoned your BLS early and you let them kill you. Got it? Got it. Alright. Preemie and Call. When I refer to Preemie, I mean Premature Burial. Preemie and Call are very just like recovery cards. You can set them up pretty easily with cards like Graceful Charity, like I was saying earlier. You can discard cards like Jinzo and Air Knight, and then set Call, and then next turn make like early game pushes with cards like Air Knight, and draw some cards and get back into the game if you were behind. So yeah, those cards are really cool, and you need to know when to use them, and you need to know when to hold them, because sometimes prematuring for kind of like a lame play is really not worth it. You have to know when it's necessary to use those cards. They are one-ofs, and even if Magician of Faith exists, it does not mean that they're a 3-of just because Magician of Faith is a 2 and they're a 1. Remember that. No One of Crosshead exists. Jinzo. This is the last thing I wrote down for knowing when to push. When you're pushing and you have Jinzo, you have to realize all the things that Jinzo cannot stop. Jinzo cannot stop Book of Moon, and he cannot stop Goats. Now both of those cards, both of them are at 3. Now, before you make a push with Jinzo, I want you to think, and not just think, I want you to look at your opponent's graveyard, look at what they have used, look at their play style, even, like how they've been looking at their back row, maybe, to think, like, which of these back row could be called, or could be Scapegoats, or Book, or how many books have they used, or how many Scapegoats have they used, how many cards are on their deck. Really like do the statistics like quickly in your head and figure out, is it safe for me to push with Jinzo? If the answer is no, you probably don't want to push with Jinzo, because Jinzo is another one of those cards where you don't want to get him snatched. Because if they snatch steal Jinzo, that means that you can't protect yourself, because they just stole the card that was preventing you from protecting yourself. So think about that before you make a push. That's all I'm saying. So, lastly, the Power 3 versus my Power 2. So, the Power 3, pretty much everybody knows at this point that the Power 3 is Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed. Those are the power three. If anyone ever refers to the power three, just no. Just no from now on. My power two are Snatch and Premature. I love these two cards. Now, I know everyone's going to be like, of course, those are very powerful cards. We get it, Sam. But, like, people underestimate these cards so much in this format, and it is crazy because when you have both of these cards in your hand at the same time, you can do things that are pretty much impossible in Go From It. You can have a normal summon, you can snatch steal your opponent's monster, you can bring back a monster or Premature, and you can summon BLS. So, like, I know that's essentially a 4-card combo, but in Go format, it's entirely possible. A 4-card combo is something that you would build up over many turns, and even if it's just a 3-card combo, like even if it's just lacking the BLS, it's still very strong. Last but not least, I just like to talk about locking your opponent under their own goats. This is the last thing I want to talk about. Like, when your opponent activates goats, you don't have to kill the goats. It's not a huge thing. Think about this. The more goats your opponent has, the least pressure they can put on, because Thousand Eyes Restrict doesn't put on any pressure himself. He just steals monsters, so he takes off pressure. He doesn't put on pressure. So if your opponent activates goats, and you're not trying to put on pressure yourself, don't be in a haste to get rid of their goat tokens. Just leave them be. Let them just sit there. Honestly, they can dirtle as long as they want. Honestly, at some point, it's going to get to the point where both players are at 7 cards in hand, and they're discarding cards, and you're not. And that's going to be where you're going to come in as the victor in that situation. Yeah, I really don't have anything else to say about Go From It for this video. It's already been almost 30 minutes, but my last thing to say is, don't play Xarian, you piece of